The Kherson dam explosion has exposed about 40,000 people living in nearby areas to risk the threat of floods. More than 16,000 people are living in the most critical zone in the Ukrainian-held territory on the western side. Some of these areas have been evacuated while operations are underway in the rest of the settlements. Both Russia and Ukraine have accused each other of blowing up the dam. Hundreds of homes, buildings and infrastructure along the Dnipro River have already been inundated by floodwaters. Ukraine's Prime Minister urged the United Nations, the International Red Cross and other aid bodies to act immediately to help residents of southern Ukraine. Ukraine said that the deluge has left thousands of people without access to drinking water, while 2,000 of people were evacuated from the Ukraine-controlled part of the flooded Kherson region. The Prime Minister's concerns were echoed by President Zelensky as well, who said an international organization not present in the crisis zone of this catastrophe means that it does not exist at all. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum has entered the 2024 Republican presidential campaign, adding his name to an already crowded race that includes former President Donald Trump. Burgum, who previously worked as a software company executive, sold his startup to Microsoft more than 2 decades ago. The 66-year-old Republican governor is largely unknown beyond his state. However, he hopes to dent the early leads of his party colleagues like Ron DeSantis, Chris Christie, Mike Pence, and Donald Trump. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has pledged to strengthen economic and democratic ties with the United States. This after meeting US House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on Wednesday. On his US trip, Sunak is set to meet President Biden and members of the US Congress that he met, along with a number of American business leaders. Sunak has also conveyed that Britain will host a global summit on artificial intelligence safety later this year. He expressed that a new alliance would help London and Washington to navigate a global economy where new powers are manipulating global markets. During his visit, Sunak also visited a high school in Washington and met with the students, where he looked at technology and sustainability projects. Russia and China conducted a joint air patrol in the Asia-Pacific region. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, a group of Russian Tu-95 strategic missile carrier and Chinese Kun-6K strategic bombers flew over the Sea of Japan and the East China Sea, as well as the western part of the Pacific Ocean. The joint air patrol was held as a part of the implementation of the Military Cooperation Plan for 2023. A massive fire broke out near a military complex in Sudan's capital city, Khartoum, which the Sudanese army has been battling for weeks to defend. The fire engulfed an arms factory, which was a crucial weapons depot for Sudanese army. The opposing paramilitary Rapid Support Forces attacked the heavily protected military complex. Reports claim that the army used airstrikes to defend the arms factory. Witnesses said that the fires were caused by the bombing of the fuel and gas depots that houses in the area had been hit by shells and stray bullets. Fresh clashes have erupted in Palestine after Israeli armed forces mounted a raid into the city of Ramallah in the West Bank. The Israeli military says that it was an operation to demolish the house of a terrorist who executed a bomb attack in Jerusalem last November. Some Palestinian youth hurled stones at the Israeli forces who fired live bullets, stun grenades and tear gas at the crowd. The Palestinian Health Ministry said that at least 6 people were transferred to hospital for treatment, including 3 who sustained gunshot wounds. The Sri Lankan capital city of Colombo witnessed another student protest. This time, the students were demanding that the government release the student activists arrested in earlier anti-government protests. Riot police, which was deployed to rein in the protesters, resorted to using water cannons and tear gas to disperse the agitators. Sri Lanka, with the help of a $2.9 billion bailout from the International Monetary Fund, is trying to recover from its worst financial crisis. Brazil's Supreme Court has postponed the ruling on legalizing the boundaries of vast land reserves set aside for indigenous people. The country's apex court asked for more time to analyze the case. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has promised to formally recognize millions of acres of rainforest as indigenous land protected under federal law. However, he has been unable to get legislation passed to implement its protection. The people await a positive ruling from the Supreme Court and are challenging the bill that would strip them from the rights if they had not occupied the land before 1988, which is locally referred to as the benchmark time limit. Serbian president on Wednesday promised an early parliamentary election in an attempt to defuse large protests against his populist rule in the wake of 2 mass shootings that have shaken the nation. In an address to the country, President Aleksandar Vučić said that the vote will be held by the end of this year. Most of the opposition parties have rejected holding an early election as the president maintains a popularity among the Serb population. The opposition protesters have been demanding the resignations of senior government officials and the revocation of broadcasting licenses for 2 pro-government television networks, which they say promote violence and glorify criminal figures. Thousands of supporters of Colombian President Gustavo Petro took to the streets alongside him on Wednesday in support of his government's reforms. Petro urged Congress to approve the health and pension reforms. The lower house has said that it would pause the debates amid accusations of campaign finance irregularities, which Petro has vehemently denied. The government says the health proposal would increase access, raise salaries, and end corruption. This has ignited the biggest unrest in Petro's political career. A new constitutional council, mostly commanded by conservatives, have started drafting Chile's new constitution. This is the second constitutional process the country has undergone in 9 months. The Constitutional Council comprises 50 members who will work from a draft written by 24 experts appointed by Congress earlier this year. The new process will be shorter and more limited than the previous one, which was marred by controversies surrounding extreme proposals. The complete text will go to a national mandatory vote in December. The northern Peruvian city of Piura has become the epicenter of the largest dengue epidemic in the country's history. Houses and streets of the neighborhoods were being fumigated in an attempt to stop the spread of the disease. More than 129,000 people have been infected and 191 people have died till now. Local hospital wards are stretched to capacity, and the government has had to set up a field hospital to meet the affected patients' demands. Italy has rescued more than 1,400 migrants, including children, in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of the southern Italy. The migrants were stuffed up in overcrowded boats. As many as 47 migrants, including 2 children, in immediate need of medical care. Authorities didn't immediately give details of the nationalities of the passengers or routes taken by the migrant vessels. Obese and diabetic patients in the UK will be given free access to a new diet drug. Studies show that the drug reduces weight by up to 15%. UK patients fitting the criteria of being diabetic or obese will be prescribed the injection for a period of 2 years. It's expected that around 35,000 people would have access to this drug. According to the UK government, it's part of a £40 million pilot project that explores how to deliver weight loss treatments outside of a hospital setting. A Taiwanese high school has installed an indoor shooting range on its campus to train students in the use of rifles and other weapons. The facility helps students learn about all-out defense, a concept designed to help the country prepare for conflict. Aside from shooting airsoft guns, students can also experience flying a military aircraft using a flight simulator. The Chiles volcano in Hawaii, one of the most active volcanoes in the world, started erupting after a 3-month pause. The Hawaii Emergency Management Agency confirmed that the eruption started at 5 a.m. on Wednesday. The last time this volcano erupted was earlier this year on January the 5th. Locals have been urged to stay indoors and wear face masks to avoid high levels of toxic volcanic gas. Puerto Rico is enduring a scorching heat wave with temperatures hitting 52 degrees Celsius earlier this week. The severe weather conditions are making Puerto Rican residents more vulnerable to heat exhaustion and heat strokes. To tackle the sweltering weather, locals were seen buying fans and inflatable pools. Scientists have claimed that climate change is contributing to the more severe and longer heat waves across the planet. Hundreds of uncontrolled forest fires blazed across Canada, threatening infrastructure, forcing evacuations, and sending blankets of smoky air across the border into the New York City. Roaring flames have rapidly escalated in eastern Canada and forced evacuations in Nova Scotia and Quebec. According to local authorities, more than 11,000 people have been evacuated so far from remote parts of northern Quebec. Meanwhile, the weather forecast says that air quality will be deteriorating this week in cities including Ottawa and Toronto due to the smoke. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has asked residents to stay indoors as the city's air quality continued to deteriorate due to smoky air from the Canadian wildfires. During a press conference, Adams said that the effects of hundreds of wildfires burning across Quebec all the way to the western provinces could be felt on Wednesday. The effects could be felt as far as North Carolina to the south and Ohio to the west. This resulted in skylines being blotted out, people feeling irritation in their throats. U.S. authorities issued air quality alerts in multiple regions, and poor conditions are expected to persist for days. A 4.9 magnitude earthquake struck Haiti. At least 3 people were killed. A dozen others were injured due to the quake. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the earthquake struck with a shallow tremor at 5 in the morning. According to local authorities, 3 people who died were crushed when their home collapsed. The earthquake comes after severe floods and landslides rocked the island nation of Haiti earlier this week, killing 42 people. As India's monsoon sets in, data suggests that India received 57% lower rainfall than the average in the first week of June. The monsoon delivers nearly 70% of the rain India needs to water farms and recharge reservoirs. The rains act like the lifeblood of the country's $3 trillion economy.